So next we've got the little lacrimal bones. So these are the tiny bone that lies here. So anteriorly you've got the maxilla, and then you've got the sphenoid bone, the zygomatic bone, and the frontal bone. So you can just see, if I zoom in a bit more, you can just see this. This is the lacrimal bone here, this little bone. Got it on both sides, obviously. So there's the paired lacrimal bones. So I've talked about the nasal bones, the maxilla, the zygomatic bones, the bones that you can see through the piriform aperture, the inferior nasal concha on both sides. I didn't talk about this bone here, but this is the vomer, and I'll just come on to show you that now. So you can see the vomer through here, but I think I'll rotate around to a different view and show you the other bone, the palatine bone. So I'll just switch the view around. Okay. Okay, so if we look inferiorly, so I'm rotating the skull around, so we're looking from the bottom of the skull now. Okay, so if you just see what I did, I just rotated the skull so it's tilted backwards. And now if we just look at the, keep your eye on this maxilla bone, and you can see as you rotate it around, we're just looking at the underside of the maxilla, just there. So here, this whole structure here is the hard palate. So you can feel this in yourself. If you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you can feel your hard palate. And if you move your tongue posteriorly, you can feel the soft palate, which is made up of soft structures. So this whole structure is the hard palate, and it consists of two bones. This anterior part here is made up of the maxilla, and then this posterior part is the palatine bone, and this is another bone of the facial skeleton. So you've got left and right palatine bones, and anteriorly you've got the maxilla. But this whole structure is the hard palate. So the hard palate consists of the maxilla and palatine bones. So if we just remember I was talking about the vomer, we can see, if I rotate it around, you can see, what have I done? Okay, just get that view back. So if you just zooming in a bit, you can see something that's extending backwards from the palatine bone, and this is the vomer, which you saw through the piriform aperture. So this bone here is the vomer, and I think a good way to sort of visualize and understand this bone is by coming from behind and having a look. So just looking at the vomer from here, you can see, I'm just going to rotate it around and we're going to have a look posteriorly. So you can see that this is the vomer here, and then you can see the palatine bones and the maxilla, which makes up the hard palate, this whole structure here. So the posterior part is the palatine bone, and then you can see how the vomer sits on top of the palatine bone, and it extends backwards like that. So just rotating around again, so you can see the vomer here. And rotating completely to posterior view, you can see how it separates these two oval shaped openings, and these are known as the posterior nasal apertures, or the choanae, and this is the opening into the nasopharynx from the nasal cavity. So that's the vomer, and you can see it here sitting on the palatine bones and extending all the way round to here. So just to recap what I've gone through, the bones of the facial skeleton, you've got the nasal bones, the maxilla, the zygomatic bones on either side, and then you've got the bones which you can see through the piriform aperture, the inferior nasal conchae, which are part of the maxilla, the vomer, and the palatine bones. And then medially, making up the medial wall of the orbit, you've got the lacrimal bones on either side. So you can remember these bones of the lower skull with the mnemonic, Virgil cannot make my pet zebra laugh. So that's vomer, conchae, nasal, maxilla, mandible, palatine, zygomatic, and lacrimal. But remember that the mandible isn't actually part of the facial skeleton. It's just included in the mnemonic to help you remember bones of the lower skull. So that's covered all the bones of the skull, and hopefully having a good look at those has helped you remember them.
إن أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الاشتراك بالقناة والإعجاب والتعليق على الفيديو، وأيضا لا تنسى المشاركة. جميع الحقوق محفوظة لقناة Arab Doctors Tube.